Good morning, welcome to the channel. We're back with another episode, and we're back to a house that I had been at previously, so you may have seen it or it may look familiar. It's going into the crawl space of a 120-year-old house probably. We're going to be resupporting some of the floor joists. If you'll remember in a previous video, a few months ago probably, there were two damaged floor joists that I sistered and restructured. You can see here how badly damaged they were. This is the plan now, is to sister up each floor joist. So our joist will run this span. There'll be a beam perpendicular to the joist that catches those new floor joists, and then just a post on either end to catch that load. We're not gonna have to worry too much about the full load of the house or anything, because this is an old balloon framed house. All these floor joists are doing is supporting the floor above, which is the living room. It's not doing anything on the secondary floor, on the second story there. You can see here even that it's what they did in a couple spots already, just to help carry some of that load from above. There's a post here, a beam running up there. There's a post there, another post there. So they kind of pieced it together as they went, I have a feeling, as they noticed things were sagging or things were a little bouncy. We're just gonna clean up all of it and hopefully make it more secure for years to come. I'll give you a quick view of what's going on with some of these joists. This is one of the more damaged joists. It's cracked about halfway up. The next one to it, there's a big like bark edge along half of the length of it. There's a shim that spans that distance. So there's just a bunch of stuff like that we're gonna try and clean up and re-secure. You know, once you have a dozen people or 5 adults or something in this living room above, that's quite a bit of weight, especially if it's condensed, especially if everyone's moving around, whatever. So we are gonna secure it and make it less bouncy, less of a trampoline. For example, you can see that this post here isn't quite level. I think it's probably, the bearing point between the top and the bottom to carry that load is off centered because the post is leaning this way. So there might be, honestly, it looks like there's no bearing point. So something like that should be taken care of sooner than later. Because if that were to slip with someone on top, you just don't know what would happen. We'll clean up some of these joists. First thing to go are these cross braces. They prevent the joists from moving left and right. It will be okay to take out for a short period of time. The house is built already, so it's not gonna go anywhere, but in order to put my new joist against here, these would be in the way. That's probably gonna take a little bit of time, so I'll do that. And then some of this duct work might have to come down, but we'll see if I can slip my joist up over it instead. I finished demoing those cross braces, which are right there, and I've gone on to pull back some of that wiring, so that means we can now begin sistering up those joists. And with my full length joist being right here, I might have to pop this window open. Thankfully there's one there, slide it out that end, and then I can bring it up over all of this duct work into the cavity, the joist spacing here, rest it on this ledger board that I fastened onto the bottom side, and then lift those new joists up, tack them on, screw them on lightly, and then build my beam. First one is fitted in that space. It was a little tight as you saw, but I got it to fit. And kind of the good news is I'm able to make it on top of this beam here, just barely, but you can see it is in there and resting on it about 1.5 inches. So I have it running that full distance now, that full length. We'll still probably put a beam across here to carry these joists, but it is nice to know that they are resting on that main tree. Basically a 8x8 square tree. I'm gonna go ahead and try and fit a few more of these in and see how it goes. Kind of ran into a snag, so I'm gonna have to remove these 2 telescopic posts here in order to get my next pieces up, which shouldn't be a big issue. I think these aren't bearing much weight, if any, but I should do it slowly just in case. I don't know why they're here even. Obviously maybe for a reason, but we're just gonna slowly take them down to see if there's any flex in these joists as I lower it. I guess we're good. I'll just take these down. And then this other one. Okay, this I-beam is loose now. And that takes care of that little beam. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the rest of these lengths up while I have it out, and I'll probably put it back in just to prop it up while I finish off everything else. Alright, so I do have most of these joists up and in their position now, just tacked on. I'm gonna have to come back another day, probably tomorrow, and do the beam and everything. But right now I have them all dry fitted, except for this last one, this one here. This joist here, you can see they've just cut. They just took a 4-foot section out of there. So that's not great. And I was just gonna show you this joist here, how I'm handling this. The original joist is, there's a big hook in it, like a hockey stick on this end. And it's not great, so what I've done is with the new joist I've put on, I've just reused one of these old telescopic posts, and I've cranked this new joist up. I've drilled the hole between both of them, and now I'm just gonna put this big bolt straight through. It should go bolt, washer, and then go through. And then likewise, washer, nut on this side. And then I can go ahead and tighten that up. I'm gonna finish that off. I have to hook up a little bit of this HVAC I had to take down, and we'll come back in the next day when I can finish it off. It's the next day, and this is the last joist, the most difficult one, of course, so a great way to start the day. Now I'll go ahead and do the beams. This now has a joist, this space. All right, now that the floor joists are in place, I have laid out my 2-ply beam I'm gonna use. I'm just using 2x8 here. I don't really need too much more. Again, it's not carrying that much weight, basically just the living room above. So 2x8 double ply will be enough for that. I'm gonna go ahead and laminate them together. I'm gonna use just bolts, the same bolts I've used to sister up these joists here. So just bolt it all together, and that should be plenty strong. I'm gonna make sure the crown side is flush. Like that. I'll just throw a couple in to keep the boards together. And then just grab my 1/2-inch spade bit. Grab my bolt, washer, hammer, washer, nut. This just to hold it. Impact. And you want to go to where this starts crushing the wood and this has pulled together. And that's the process I'm going to repeat a bunch of times to laminate this all together. I'll put this on a time lapse and we'll get back to when it's ready to be hoisted up. Now that this beam is all fastened together, I've lifted it up, hoisted it up, braced it on either end, and now we can go ahead and prop it up properly with the telescopic posts, giving a lot more support. I'm probably going to end up putting one on either end and then two in the middle, just because of the span and for the price of what they're worth. May as well just go that extra mile, make sure it's really solid up there. One more thing to keep in mind is that all these original joist height are probably going to vary a little bit, so your gap underneath this beam, which is what we're going to close, is also going to vary from joist to joist. So I'll just cut a couple shims like that, make sure they fit, and that we're getting full contact, full structural load from the floor above transferring onto that beam onto our posts. I've set up and adjusted this one post, kind of braced this as I'm beginning that shimming process. And I'll do this far corner too. How we're doing it is a big steel plate. This can go right on the ground. So I'm gonna throw that there, grab our post, and we'll just open this up. You have two of these plates. One of them goes at the bottom. You have a pin. This pin has little notches, so just make sure those little notches are seated down, and that seats it on the rim of that outer sleeve. This is the adjustable pin for up top. I'm going to wind it all the way down. That goes up top there. So there's a little bit of tension on that, it's not going to move, and I can just plumb it up and down and then make adjustments if I need to pretty easily. But it's good where it is, so I'm going to crank it up a bit more. So I'm only going to snug it up because I want to put some PL, some adhesive. I want to put some of that construction adhesive in that gap there, and then I'll crank that post tight against the floorboards, and hopefully that will stiffen everything up even more so and eliminate most of the squeaks and everything too. I'm going to throw those other ones up, and then we'll go ahead and do the next step. Alrighty. We'll just use this on that gap. All right, I'm going to finish those up quickly, and then we can jack all these joists up with using those telescopic posts and push those joists tight to the underside of the floor. My job here is now done. I went ahead and cranked all of these posts up tight, and I also bolted together these joists towards the originals just to keep them a little more secure. Probably wasn't too necessary, but because I got rid of that cross bracing in between them, this will help just stiffen it up a bit. But that's it for this video. So hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.